So you guys raise cavies? How long have you raised cavies? So you probably know as much as I do. Have you had them for a while, or?
Probably 3 years.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we only have 3, so.
Oh, okay. So are you breeding them? No, are you gonna breed them? Maybe.
I don't really know. They're just kind of. She doesn't know. She uses them for showmanship at the fair, so that's, and like tomorrow she's showing them, but the one of them that she brought this weekend, but just so she can get judges' comments and stuff.
Oh, cool.
But normally we don't bring them to the shows and stuff.
Okay, but you breed
because we're
rabbits.
So busy with rabbits.
Yeah, yeah.
So
that's
it just gets to be too much. So the only reason we entered it is to get the comments, and because it was going to be here for her showmanship tonight, anyways. So.
yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, but she does
Is
like
it-
conventions and royalty contests and stuff, so
Mhm.
it's good to know, learn as much as she can. So
Right?
sometimes I buy her different breeds and stuff just so she can have the experience. And
Yeah, that's cool. And I think there's going to be a lot here just from the people that I saw that are coming with the cavies. And I don't have cavies anymore. I had them for 7 years. And my original plan was to get them because I kind of thought I wanted to get my cavy judge's license. And then the more I showed them, the more I realized I don't want to do that. And even though a lot of people were like, oh, we need dual judges, I'm like, yeah, but you know what? If your heart's not in it, it just isn't the way to go. I mean, it kind of drives me crazy. When I got my rabbit judge's license, I mean, it was just, my heart was 100+% into it. I just wanted to make things better, pave the way for women, girls, because I was Michigan's first woman rabbit judge. I don't know if you know that. So, and it was a pretty tough road. I mean, it was not easy back in '92 when I got my license. In this area, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, there's weren't very many women, so it was kind of rough, but it was okay. I almost quit, and I didn't, because I would go home crying, and it was something else, but kind of stuck with it because my husband gave me a hard time. The first time that I judged, all the judges wore white lab coats, and I went home and I was crying, and my husband was like, well, how'd it go? And I said, it was terrible. You guys move up closer because it's only just going to be a few of us. I said, it was terrible. I'm quitting. I'm never doing this again. And he's like, what do you mean? And I kind of told him why. And he said, I think you should quit. And I said, I'm going to. He goes, and then all the young girls that come after you are going to say, Pam Jones couldn't handle it, so I'm not even going to try. And he goes, yeah, I think that'd be great for you. And I'm like, oh, man. So he knew right what to say to get me to not quit. So anyhow, so that was a long time ago. But the whole the cavy thing, I really enjoyed the animals when I had them. But the whole cavy judging is a whole different world than rabbit judging. Rabbit judging, it's like, get those rabbits going, move. Cavies, it's like a lot slower. And then you gotta, pick best junior and senior and everything, and the colors don't jive with rabbit colors, so that's also a weird thing. So, the only thing hi guys, I had a PowerPoint that I was gonna do, and then I found out Wednesday that I had PowerPoint capability here. Wasn't enough time for me, my daughter-in-law, my kid, to get it ready, so no PowerPoint. But I do have a couple of things to hand out, and since there's just going to be a few of us, it's going to be super casual. And I didn't really get, when they asked me to do this, it was, they wanted you to talk about cavies. And I'm like, okay, what do you want me to talk about cavies? And they're like, let's talk about cavies. And I'm like, okay, what about cavies? And they're like, let's talk about cavies. I'm like, okay, well, that's pretty broad. So anyhow, Chris told me that it was pretty much going to be newer cavy breeders, but you had cavies for a long time. You have?
My sister's bred cavies and I showed her, but I got them like a long time ago.
Oh, okay. So I was pretty much just going to talk about housing and feed. Not great on cavy colors, but if you have any questions on them, I can sort of finagle through the colors because they're just not like rabbit colors. But basic genetics, is that basic genetics, no matter what the species. So now this is getting recorded. Maybe he can dub this out. Tell that to a cavy person, and they don't believe you. But anyhow, basic color genetics. It doesn't matter what species. It is what it is. Basically, I have some. I was going to make copies of these, and then I ran out of ink. But this is what my PowerPoint was going to be on. Were some of the different ways to house your cavies. How do you guys house your? What kind of cages or do you have?
We have like spiral tubs that were like made by the place, I think.
Ah,
Like,
yes.
specialized made.
I have a picture of those. So those. Yep, I have a picture of those somewhere. Ah.
That's what Casey has also.
Oh, okay.
I have like stackers. I have 9 right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I have like a 2-hole stacker and like a 4 stack of them, and then I have just like cages. Really, I don't know how to explain it, but like,
So are they like the cages that you get from a cage dealer?
yeah.
But then, okay, so I should have printed these things out and I can't find it. So kind of like these. Yes. So I have a couple of things that I was going to show you guys because through my few years of having them, here's my other picture. This is what you have, right? Yeah. So those are really cool. I liked them a lot. But my favorite, my husband built me this configuration in my basement. So I do have it on my phone too, if you want to see, if anybody's interested in seeing the whole thing. So in the basement, it's this. He cut a ping pong table in half down the middle, and put one on one side and one on the other side, and then just built up the walls. And he made the inside measurements the same size as trays. So it's 24 inches deep because that's kind of the basic cage size of trays. And then he made them, the slots could fit 36, 30, or 24. So depending on how big of litters or how many in a community I wanted to keep together, I could divide them off or make them bigger. So like for instance, this group of pigs all live together from the 2 different moms. So I just took the dividers out and they all just live happily in this area. Once the boars get old enough to breed, which if you decide to start breeding them, that's the big thing you gotta watch out for, because young boars can typically breed their moms sometimes as early as 3 or 4 weeks old. So you gotta be really careful with that. And it's really easy to sex them, super easy, way easier than rabbits. People said that to me when I first started raising them, and I thought they were nuts. But then when I really figured it out, it really, really is very easy. But that's the one thing you do have to be careful with if you should decide to breed them is, unless you want mama to be bred back to her son, got to get the boys out. So that's where these dividers kind of came in really neat. So I would let them all live together. At about 3 or 4 weeks old, I would put dividers and put all the boars on one side and all the sows on the other. And they're not very good climbers or jumpers, so it worked out well. But one of the things that I did, because I don't like cleaning cages, I don't know anybody that does, that I found with the cavies, that one of the biggest issues with them is when their water bottles would sit inside the cages, kind of like these water bottles are inside the trays, that they play with them, they drip, they leak, whatever, just cleaning them constantly. So we made this, you guys can take this and pass it around so you can see it better. We made that configuration to where these, and then we did this too, the same, kind of the same thing, but on that, to where the water bottles would actually be on the outside of the cage, and even the nozzle would drip on the outside of the cage. The first one, I just went and got the little plastic cups and hooked them underneath, and then the water would all drip into the cups. And I would have to empty those every single day. So that's how much water that I eliminated from being inside on the tray because it was in the cup instead. So the second picture is, we took my husband, he really got into building this. One of the reasons I kind of felt sad about not having the cavies anymore, because he really did a cool job on that cage, is he took a gutter from like a house gutter, and he put it all along, and he kind of angled it just ever so slightly to where it would drip into the gutter, into one middle, and then it would go into a bucket. So I would just dump the bucket. But unreal how often I would dump that bucket, and I would think to myself, all that water would have been in the tray. And that's where all the mess and all the stink and all the dirty, and I raised white ones, so I made sure they were very, very clean. So that is probably one of the most helpful tips. And then I eventually got an automatic watering system, but I did it the same way. So I put the nozzle on the outside, and they just stick their head through that, and then, I'm going to fall off of this table, and David's going to have it on tape, and it's going to be hilarious to everybody but me. So that is that. If you guys want to take pictures of that, or if you want any of those, I don't even care, that's cool. You can. And then I have more of those pictures are on my Facebook, or if you want pictures off my phone, or if you want any just advice to get that. And the watering system, so easy. It's just a gravity system, so it was the bucket sat on the cage, and then. But I would never suggest a watering system unless you had a cup under each cage, because if one got plugged up, if you didn't have that, like if you just had one bucket at the bottom, well, first of all, the ones underneath would get their heads wet. But I also used it to monitor to make sure nothing was plugged up, nothing was stopped up, because, of course, if they stop drinking, they'll stop eating, and then they're dead. So that's kind of a big thing. So a lot of cavy breeders, I believe, don't like watering systems because they think that they can't monitor their water, but there are plenty of ways, especially just putting a cup underneath to make sure they have plenty of water. So, you guys have any questions about cages or bedding? I always used white pine shavings. I made sure they were a little bit flaky, because if they were too fine, it seemed to make more of a mess. And like I said, I had white ones, so keeping them clean was the easiest way for me to make sure they were clean when they went to the shows. And most judges would rave about them because they were always super, super, super clean. How do you get them clean? You don't let them get dirty. That's what I always told people, because it was like, if they get their belly stained, oh my word, it was just so hard to get it clean. But do you have any questions about cages at all, or bedding, or any of that fun stuff? No? Okay, so since I kind of rolled into keeping them clean, I think with cavies, this is not the norm, and any cavy breeder is going to not agree with what I said, what I'm about to say. However, I had them for a short time, but I had a lot of success really quick. But I'm also a dog groomer, so I know about really good shampoos. So I would use some really good shampoos on my cavies, and I would wash them the day before the show. Most people don't agree with that because they think that the animal has to get the oil back in their coat. But if you use a really, really high quality shampoo that's not going to take the oil out of their coat, you don't need that extra time. And again, having the white ones, if I bathe them a week in advance, they're just going to be dirty again. So I was made sure that I would, and my system, I'll give you guys a secret here, my system for bathing them, I have a tub, a bathing tub, but then I would take a tub this size and put it in my tub so that they didn't run all over the place. And I would take 2, usually 3 at a time, and I would put them in the tub and just lightly get them wet. And then for my white ones, I would use a shampoo called White on White. Really makes them glisten. But you got to be really careful with it because it can turn them purple, and you don't want that. And then there's also shampoos, if you have black ones, it's called Black on Black. and it's a dog shampoo. It's perfectly legal. It's just a shampoo, but if you have black, does anybody have black ones? Black Cavies? No? Or TSWs or anything? Anyway, if you ever do, that shampoo is amazing because it just helps that black get really, really black. It's not a dye or anything like that, so I'm not telling you anything illegal. But what I would do is I would put them all in this tub, lightly get them wet, and then I would shampoo one, and then I'd shampoo the other, and then I'd shampoo the other. Then I'd go back to that first one, and I always have, are you ready for it? You'll never find me without these in my back pocket because they're always there. Next show, just test me and they'll be there. So then I would take the first one that I lathered up and cut their nails while the shampoo is just kind of still sitting on them. And then I would go to the second one, cut its nails, and then I'd go to the third one and cut their nails. And I'd go back to the first one, rinse it, and then put it in a second tub, rinse the second one, put it in the second tub, rinse the next one, put it in the second tub, and then I'd rinse them again. The key is when you think the shampoo's all out, rinse them again. And then dry them. Sometimes I would, depending on how many, sometimes I would show a lot. So I would have a dryer kind of set up, and I'd have another tub on the floor, and the dryer would be on the tub. But I just had Americans and satins, so I didn't have to worry about long hair or rosettes or anything like that. So that's my advice to shampooing and trimming nails. Trimming nails, I think on cavies, can make or break that animal's pose, just like several breeds of rabbits. I talk about it a lot when I judge that this is a show. Present your animal, whether it's a rabbit or a guinea pig. You want that animal presented, and especially with rabbits, we don't have a whole lot to do. Cut their nails. Judges don't want to get scratched up, and some rabbits and all guinea pigs, if their nails are too long and they can't sit comfortably, it's just not easy for them to get a good pose, and you're just not going to get the good. Did I mess up by sitting on the table? Okay. We just decided to get comfortable. To get them to pose if their nails are really long because they just can't get their feet comfortable. So always remember that. Whether it's rabbits or guinea pigs, trim those nails. Really, really a big deal. So when I judge your rabbits, I'm going to be looking for that. And with that, there was something else I was going to go with that. I don't remember what it was going to be. I'll come back to it. All right. Nutrition is the other thing I want to talk about. Food. What do you feed your guinea pig? Guinea pigs. Okay. Anything else?
Vegetables every day. And vitamins in the water, right?
Vitamin C, I put in the water and make it hay.
Okay, good. That's taking hay. What do you guys feed?
I feed mine canned food with YQ Plus in it.
Cool.
And then I give them kale and carrots every day, and then just water.
Awesome. They get hay ever?
Once in a while.
Yeah. Hay's a big deal for guinea pigs. Make sure you get that hay, especially if you're going to breed them. Another thing with breeding them, if careful with the amount of protein. What I found out, because I feed oxygen to my rabbits, I also feed YQ Plus. I'm a huge supplement believer. We had an issue, I can't remember how many years ago now, with a food. A bunch of us here in Michigan lost a whole lot. I didn't lose very many, but like Kelly lost a ton of pigs, and several people lost a whole bunch of guinea pigs, and the thing we had in common was the kind of food we were feeding. I think that I got lucky because I fed the oxygen, I fed the YQ Plus, they got vegetables every single day, they got hay every day. What I didn't notice is that they were picking all that stuff out and they really weren't eating that food. I did lose, I think, 3, but a lot of the other people lost a lot. So my philosophy on that is the more options that you give them, if something should go bad, hopefully the other stuff will offset it. I raised parsley, and oh my gosh, so easy to raise, and you can raise it all year round too. You can raise it inside. I bought an arrow garden. Have you seen those things? It's like with the light and these little pods, and I raised it that way, and then I just replanted it outside when it was springtime, and it was way cool. But the only problem with that is they're smart enough to know the difference of homegrown and store-bought. Oh my word. I'm not even kidding you. So in the winter, when I didn't have the arrow garden and the homegrown parsley, I would put it in there and they would just kind of look at me like, what are you trying to pull, lady? Because normally I'd go out and I have these big bushes, and if they get a lot of sunlight and a lot of water, I highly suggest growing parsley, because it grows like weeds. It's super easy. You just got to watch those little wormy things. But with that, and in this little handout thing, it does talk a lot about food. Have you guys ever had to give your cavies any supplements?
Before shows, there's a few of them that need like vitamin C drops.
Mm-hmm.
So I give them it's like white, and it's like I give them like a syringe of it. And it's like they have the head tilt.
Mm-hmm.
So I give some of them that before shows, and that works.
Oh, good. Very cool. I used to give mine vitamin C. I would just buy it at the vitamin store, sometimes at Walgreens. Just the in a tablets, but vitamin C chewables. And I found there were big white ones, because then I could break them up. Because I think they were like 500 milligrams? Would that be the measurement? 500, whatever it is, which is too much. They don't need that. But with vitamin C, you can't like overdose on vitamin C, so it's not going to hurt them. They just don't need it. It's kind of a waste. So those big white round ones that were easy to break up and then break up, so each pig would get like a quarter, which is a really good, and they kind of expected that every day. So some people say they don't like to do that because I don't know if there's like a sugar content in those or whatever the binding agent is to keep them together, but didn't hurt mine, and I did really, really well with them. So it's kind of like, as long as they're getting vitamin C, we all know that that's super, super important. And pregnant sows need calcium sometimes. Sometimes if they don't get enough calcium, they can really whack out. What I was going to tell you is when I was doing a lot of breeding, I learned the hard way that your pregnant sows, you really need to cut some of the supplements, the oxygen. No, I didn't feed oxygen at all to them, to pregnant sows, and the YQ Plus I would take down to just a minimum. Why? Babies got huge, and they couldn't pass them, they couldn't deliver them. So I did lose a couple of moms and babies because the babies just got way too big. You guys can come in. We're almost done.
So I can join you?
Jeb, come on, we're just casual.
Okay. So if I push my cart in and join you?
You can do whatever you want. So anyway, I think that, and you guys know cedar shavings, right? No cedar. You know that. I figured you would know that. We're just about wrapping it up.
Okay.
But you wanna?
I didn't even know what time it was and didn't hear the announced anywhere.
Yeah, I think Chris announced it, and then.
I'll wait for this.
But we're just talking about housing, bedding, food. Do you guys have any questions?
I have a pregnant sow right now,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like really tiny.
Mm-hmm.
She's like not really long.
She's not growing wide.
Yeah.
How long ago do you think she was bred?
Three-ish, 4 weeks ago.
Weeks ago? So.
She has lost a lot of weight too.
Oh, she's lost a lot of weight?
Yeah.
How come? Do you know?
I remember. I've been feeding her extra too. She's still.
I would just make sure you up her. Oh no. It's in my iPad. they didn't download to here. I would go with extra like parsley, if you can just, parsley was always my go-to because it's so cheap. Well, it was free because I grew it, but even in the wintertime, you could go and just get big bunches of parsley for 69 cents. I don't know what it is now, but there's not any calories in parsley. So to give her parsley to keep her eating, she's not really digging the pellets too much. And that you guys know that the gestation is like 70 days, right? So, and to know when a cavy gets bred, I had them for 7 years. I never saw a breeding. Never saw a breeding. I just didn't. Because somebody was like, oh, when pigs breed, it's just so much weirder than rabbits. I'm like, yeah, I never saw one. 7 years. But, so I never knew when. I just kind of knew, like, I'd write down the date that I'd put them together, and if I separated, the date that I separated. But I usually did not separate until, shut this off and see if my pictures come back. I would usually leave the boars in with the sows until the babies were born. Because a lot of times the boars will help the sows if mama's having trouble, especially if she has a lot quick, then the boars will help get those sacs off. So have you ever had a litter of babies? Have you guys have?
I have.
So they're born in sacs. So if you ever decide to breed them, and if you're around when she's having them, get ready to help if you need to. I only had it not too many times because usually the moms would just take care of it. But every once in a while, like she'd have one and she'd try to open the sac, but then the other one was coming, so she had to concentrate on that one. So you got to get in there and you rip that sac open on their face and you just kind of give them a little shake. And I thought they were dead. I mean, when I've done that, I'm like, oh man, it's too late. They're dead. Nope. They just kind of like they come around and it's the coolest thing ever because they just, I don't know, it just kind of reminds me of like the little fawns that you see pictures of, videos of when they're kind of coming to life, and it's really cool. So don't ever discount any until you're positive that they're dead, because they kind of just come back pretty cool. But you got to get that sac off their face so they can get their breath. But let's see if this worked. Do you have cavies? You do? Why do you say that like that?
Well, supposedly he was allergic,
Oh.
and now he's claimed like one of my boars.
Oh, nice.
No, next weekend we go down and get a red rose here boar.
Oh, nice.
So,
You're gonna go to Tennessee?
no,
Oh.
they're gonna be showing in Zanesville, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
So we've got
Oh.
a trio from Mary Lou, one from Maddie, and we're gonna go pick up this little red rose.
Wow, getting into it. So does everybody have short hairs? Short hair, short hair.
Well, I had a teddy, but I also had this here in Abyssinian, so like with rosettes and stuff.
Oh, gotcha.
I had a silky girl.
Gotcha. I had a I had a Peruvian. Yeah, I just wanted to coat one out. Yeah, it was great. I loved it, especially being a dog groomer. Except I travel a lot, and it's either got to go with me or mess up its coat because my husband's not about to wrap it. So yeah, that was short-lived. That was really short-lived. I have some really funny border stories because I would go to Canada quite a bit and show. And one time I had one Peruvian and all Americans. And this border guy, he would, they always have you open your car and look through them, and especially depending on how busy they are. And I would like to go through Port Huron, which seemed to be a little bit more friendly up there. And this guy's looking at him going, wow, that's cool. How'd that one do? How'd that one do? I'm like, oh, that one won. And it's like, well, what, did you shave all the rest of these? And I'm like, no, it's just a different breed. It's like, if you're not Facebook friends with me, one of my favorite stories, and this was, I don't remember how many years ago, but it came up on my memories just yesterday or the day before. I was coming through, and the guy who stopped me at the border, he's like, okay, so I've never done this before, and you got to open the car, open the hatch, And he's looking at him, he's looking through him, he's like, I gotta go get my supervisor. I'm like, it's okay, whatever. And so he goes and gets the supervisor, and the supervisor comes over and he's like, all right, well, I don't see any problems. He goes, but what do you use for the bedding? And he's looking at all the guinea pigs. What do you use for bedding? I'm like, this pine shavings. And he goes, pine shavings, but I can't even do this without laughing. He goes, and he was as serious as a heart attack. He goes, but what are the little black things? I'm not kidding. He said that as serious as could be. And I'm like, well, that would be their poop. And he's like, their what? And I said, I'm doing this. I'm like, I'm going to jail. I said, it's their poop. And he goes, have a nice day. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's like, okay. So I had forgotten about that until it came up in a memory. So, I mean, just never know. Never know. Let's see this one picture. I hope it came back. So anyhow, do you guys have any other questions? I didn't really know. It didn't come.
I have all the questions, but I'll message you later.
Oh, if you have questions, probably other people do too. We have 5 minutes.
We have 5 minutes? Okay, great.
Maybe 10. I have all the time in the world, but.
I do know about the satins.
Satins?
Yeah. So I've heard from a couple of different breeders, because I'm looking into getting some satins, the American satins, satin wars, kind of those things.
Of course.
And I've heard from certain breeders that you have to add calcium. And I've heard from other people that if the satin is losing any sort of condition, it's not a satin, it's a bone degenerative disease. Do you know anything about that?
I never had any problems with that with my satins. I had Americans and satins. And they also told me that don't ever breed satin to satin. And I'm like, okay.
Why?
Sometimes, can I turn this off for a minute? I don't know how. I'll have him edit this. Okay. I don't.
We can talk about this later if you'd like to.
Well, no, because it leads me to something else, because we're all rabbit breeders in here, right?
Yes.
All right. So there's some things that rabbit breeders do that cavy breeders really don't like about what we do.
Okay.
Oh man, if you say that word to a cavy person, they go nuts. They don't like it at all. And so I learned to keep my mouth shut. I mean, that whole bathing thing that I talked to you guys about, talk to a cavy person and they're going to think you're nuts if you go through all that procedure. But you know what? It worked. I had really good pigs. I won a lot. I mean, I won Best in Show at the Ontario Cavy Club. And
That's a big deal.
it was a big deal. And a bajillion whites there. And oh my goodness, it was just cool to win Best White. And then I won Best Smooth Coat, which is our Americans, and then Reserve and Show. It was kind of funny because there was another guy there who congratulated me, and he's a person that doesn't normally congratulate me. And I said, oh, thank you. And he goes, well, I didn't show any. I'm waiting for ACBA in 3 weeks. I'm like, oh, okay, well, we'll see you there. And it was in North Carolina. So, and I was just trying to be nice and took my white pig and washed her the day before I left and went down to North Carolina, and she won Reserve and Show there too. He didn't congratulate me then because he was convinced that she was just going to be so out of condition. But you know, the nutrition I talked about and the bathing that I talked about and the grooming that I talked about, it all makes a big difference. And she didn't skip a beat with all that traveling, but she was as hard as a rock, and she was just gorgeous. But you know, it's all those little tricks. And I mean, and I would call like I do with rabbits, because I have a very limited space, whether it's rabbits or guinea pigs or anything I do, I have limited space. So if I don't call, I'd be overrun. And with my red-eyed white pigs, they're not really, pet stores don't really want them, so not much option, right? So so that's what I would do, but it wasn't really popular in the cavy world.
Okay.
David, you can scratch that.
I mean, calling is, you know, you find other places and not your program.
Exactly, and to each their own. I just learned to kind of keep things a little bit on the down low with them, but I always remember Eric Stewart, whenever he would judge my cavies, he would just rave about how clean and how well manicured their nails were, and they just felt so good because they were just so clean. You guys don't really want to hear about cavies, do you?
I had them at one point in time.
Actually, you'd probably end stuff.
I don't really have much else to say. But you have more questions.
I do, but I'm also like, I'll message you. I don't
Okay.
have them like on the tip of my tongue.
Okay, well, I'll be here till Sunday, so. Did you guys have anything? I hope you breed at least once, because it's super fun to have
We have them all
babies.
in individual cages, because she used to have a couple of them in her room, but she had 2 boars, and when they were together, then they smell. We wondered if it was because they were together. that they
Could
were,
be,
like, spraying or
yeah.
something.
Although yeah.
And so we ended up getting a separate cage, and then
Now I have a salamander. Doesn't it smell as bad?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a lot easier.
Well, I think the boars have, I know that when I would bathe them, they've got those scent glands in there, and I would really wash those out good.
well, and one of hers, the ear tag got caught on the cage, so it ripped it out. So then it was pretty much done. Like we could breed it, but
You can put another one
it
on.
can't be. Even though it's got split in the ear,
Yeah.
can it
Mhm.
still be?
Yep, yep. It's not even a fault.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I animals in ears.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you know, it happens to so many. I mean, in fact, so I had the COD for the cow pattern cavies that we got through, and the year that we did virtual, I don't know. Everything with COVID is a blur for me. I don't even know. Don't ask. But so we got to do it virtual. So we were in my kitchen. So the Planks came over and the Martins came over. We had a few people, and we're all in my kitchen. I had this long table. Chris brought like the judging things we put on a table, and I had all the pigs lined up, and before I put them on the table, they were all in my in carrying cages, and I had a white with black or chocolate, one of the other points, and I looked down and she was red. She had got her ear tag caught and she ripped it, and it looked like she got shot. Oh my gosh, it was blood everywhere, and I'm like, oh no, what am I gonna do? I can't give her a bath. It was like we were ready to go to Zoom, and they were trying to work on the thing, and fortunately they understood. So, oh, what a mess. So, yeah, that kind of sucks. But I think that one, I think I glued it, and that's what we do in dog grooming. Use a lot of super glue if something gets cut, or you just glue it, but and just tag it somewhere else. But and the sows, you hear it both ways. A lot of people say don't breed a sow after 6 months old. I didn't have any problems. So I've heard a lot of people say that they're that they fuse together. I've also heard vets say that that's a myth. So my sow that won ACBA and OCC, she was 1.5 years, and I bred her, and she had babies fine. So
So how early are you supposed to breed them?
before 6 months, they say. By 6 months old, you should breed sows. They say. I did not do that. So, but in a lot of the literature that you read, you'll hear that 6 to 9 months, because the pelvic. But Jay Harais, who is a vet and a rabbit judge, said that is not true. So it's all a crapshoot, just like with everything. I mean, rabbits can die having babies, guinea pigs can die having babies. We know that as animal breeders. Right. So, any questions, you guys? It was fun chatting with you. This was kind of basic. They told me just to keep it kind of basic, so kind of did.
But now you know who to get a hold of.
Well, if you guys want to stay, cool. If you guys have any questions or want to hear what I just talked about before you came in, I don't mind resharing. But no questions? How old is your sow?
You should know, you just did showmanship.
And you entered it in the show tomorrow.
Yeah, we looked it up.
Do you want
It's
your
an
pictures back?
intermediate.
You know what? How about if you share them? Oh, there is a mute.
That was 26 ounces.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
We weren't sure exactly, we were trying to figure out when we got it, but we figured it was about 6 months old and it was 26 ounces, so we entered it as intermediate.
Okay.
Right, or was it 5 months old? We figured out based on when we got it and the weight that it was an intermediate.
Gotcha.
But we couldn't remember because we don't have the pedigree like we do with the rabbit, so it's hard to keep track.
Right?
Yeah.
So, you guys, with these pictures, what I was just talking about housing, I know, it's kind of bad. So, this is kind of one of the setups that I had. You guys can look at it if you want. And the reason I brought this, like these pulled out, pretty much I would keep boars in these. This wasn't my favorite thing, but it was okay. But then the regular stacker, like what they sell out here, you can see that one, the automatic watering system. But what I talked a lot about that I loved was when I figured out how to put a wire on the outside of the cage.
Yeah, that's what we were just discussing over here on the.
Yes. So, the worst part of the mess of guinea pigs' cages.
When they dump everything everywhere.
And I don't know anybody, I've tried every single water bottle on the planet, and they, not only do they all drip, but the pigs play with them. And then drip, drip, drip. It's all over their place. So amazing how much water I would catch because all of my cages had the outside wire and then a cup underneath, or a trough, one or the other. So all that water would accumulate, and it was shocking how much, because I would think, oh my gosh, this would all be in their tray. Yet it's a cup of water a day, about, depending on the pig and their playfulness. So that, to me, is a great idea. So that's a watering system with it, or you can do it with the water bottle, and then you can see more on my Facebook page. I have videos, but man, I couldn't find them for anything. But my husband built me this thing in the basement. So we took a ping pong table and he cut it in half long ways. He put half on one side and half on the other, and then built the cages. And he built it 24 inches deep because that's your typical tray size. And then he made these little slots so you could put wooden dividers to divide it up. And the wooden slots are at 36, 30, or 24. So you can make them, so like these guys, I had it opened up because they were all just happily living together. But as soon as the boars turned 3 or 4 weeks, I would put boars on one side and sows on the other side and divide it. So it was kind of cool. And then that one, that just shows a picture of the trough outside. We just took an awning and he attached it on the outside. And he angled it ever so slightly to where it would go down in the middle, and then like a gutter.
And is it the gutter?
Yeah. Did I say awning?
I did. I understand. Once I looked at it, I understood.
The gutter, and then the one it met in the middle, so I just had one bucket to empty because it would just drip that way. So it was super cool and didn't get in the cage. So you're not here for cavies, are you? Okay. What's next here, do you know?
Can I?
Yeah, you want to show those guys behind you first?
Well, I'm sure.
Okay. And then do you guys want, this is just kind of a generic recipe, but I give people a lot of really good information. And feel free to copy these if you would ever go. And then if they would want to have
I feel like
it.
and then she got babies, so she got
We're going to move to my pet store actually has a copy, just so you can see those. If you ever let any go to pet stores, I would highly recommend making copies of these readings. So these are
Well, these are awesome on here.
yeah. put the idea in by something that but I would go over there. And it was also a really good way to monitor what they were drinking, because if there was ever a dry dish, something's plugged up. So,
That's brilliant.
well, yeah, because it doesn't take them long to just be dead. I mean, Cavies. So if anything was dry, I knew something was wrong. And same with these. There was always a water area underneath, even though it would go into the main tunnel and just down into this pocket. I still have this. I'm tempted to sell it, but you should really go for these. Just wait.
Jen, I think I am not getting cavies anytime soon, so feel free to take them. I did my cavy days.
I miss my cavies. But I'm watching my granddaughter full time now, so Monday through Thursday I'm here 10 hours a day. So, you know. So, water, rabbits, cavies, something had to go, because there just wasn't enough candles. There just wasn't enough money, I was exhausted. So, granddaughter wasn't going, rabbits weren't going, sorry, cavies. They had to go. And I'm not going to hold them at all, because I would just be silly, right?
I joke a little bit, and my RH
You know,
That's starting now.
that was one thing that you never have to worry about. But you know what? I think you don't put the rabbits on the branch if you let the RH either. That's my goal.
I have an open barn, so I have stuff.
And then meeting room A waiting for you, meeting room B,
Uh-oh.
because that's what you texted me.
Yeah, it is.
Are you presenting
You
something?
found it.
I am.
What, are you in here? No.
I'm in there.
Oh, okay. What are you doing?
Presentation on wool.
Oh, nice.
You want help? Yes.
I have Eric Stewart's thingy on that. Do you want it? No.
Oh, I have like a 20.
Oh, you know what else I was going to talk about?
What?
You guys are still here. So
Yeah, it'll be a minute while I set up.
I couldn't pose the cavies. And I consider myself kind of an expert on posing and handling rabbits. So what I learned is, so this is my posing rabbits. What I did is I switched it. So when I would pose the cavies, I would use my left hand, and I was able to pose them much easier, because this one was just 40 years trained of doing rabbits. And I just couldn't make it happen. So when I switched it to my other hand, it worked out awesome. So, just a little thing.
Yeah, I have all of them.
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Fantastic.
Good. I gotta go trim nails, especially after I did my little lecture on grooming.
Hey, I actually got my nails trimmed at this show.
You better.
What happened? Oh,
I'm not judging, so
Oh, you're not?
I won't be able to judge that, no. No, and they needed more judges, but I have a booth and, between the booth and showing, too much.
You are judging trips for water though, right?
Yes,
I remembered I saw your name on one of the flyers though.
it was a last minute add-on, but I think that is David's.
Okay.
My phone is not activated. Did you say May?
Yeah.
We'll talk to her about that later.
I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow.
We did talk about that. We're gonna talk about that later.
Okay, there was one thing I did have you do a cutoff.
Yes. She was talking to you.
So, I won Eric's scarf at convention.
Check that out.
Check this one out.
Hey, Jen.
Yep, I know. I need to get my computer started, otherwise it's not gonna be ready.
So what she does is she collects
I know.
at shows, she collects all our stuff that we she puts it in a bag, and then she sends it, all of what comes out of the bag. And it makes this barnyard blend, so it's got
stop, blend, so stop, blend, so stop, blend, so stop, blend,